Yasoda Yamuna Vanatari Yamuna Vanatari Kundavihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanara Bhajana Randana Yasodhananda Bhajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hara Hara Kunda Vihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Bhajana Randana Yasodhanandana Bhajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. All glories to you and Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Guru and Gauranga. So we're in the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the perfection of renunciation. And it's text 56. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, text 56. Sarva Kamani Api Sada Kurvano Mavya Pasrayaha Ma Prasadad Avapnoti Sasvatam Param Avyayam Sarva Kamanya Pasada Kurvano Mavya Pasrayaha Ma Prasadad Avapnoti Sasvatam Para Avyayam Sarva Kamanya Pisada Kurvano Mabhya Pasrayaha Ma Pasara Vapnoti Sasvatam Para Avyayam. Devotees. Sarva Kamaya Pisada Kurva Mabhya Pasrayaha Ma Pasara Vapnoti Sasvatam Para Avyayam. Sarva Kamaya Pisada Kurvano Mabhya Pasrayaha Ma Pasara Vapnoti Shashvatam param avyayam.
Sarvakarmanyaphi sada.
Sarvakamyapi sada.
Kurvano madhyapashrayah.
Kurvano madhyapasrayaha.
Matprasadadavapnoti.
Maprasadavapnoti.
Shashvatam paramavyayam.
Shashvatam param avyayam. Anyone else? Word for word, sarva, all. Karmani, activities. Api, although. Sada, always. Gavanaha, performing. Mavya pasrayaha, under my protection. Mat prasadat, by my mercy. Avapnoti, one achieves. Sasvatam, the eternal. Param, abode. Avyayam, imperishable. Purports and translations are by His very divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Please repeat. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Purport. The word Madhyapasrayaha means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. To be free from material contamination, a pure devotee acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. There's no time limitation for a pure devotee. He's always 24 hours a day, 100% engaged in activities under the direction of the Supreme Lord. To a devotee who is thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind. In spite of all difficulties, he's eventually placed in the transcendental abode, or Krishna Loka. He is guaranteed entrance there. There's no doubt about it. In that supreme abode, there's no change. Everything is eternal, imperishable, and full of knowledge. Jai. Om Gina Timaranda Shah Gina Gana Salakaya Takshamalitam Yena Tasmai Shikadave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swarupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaisnavam Cha Shri Rupam Savgajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Zitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsta E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kapils Tarubias Cha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaisnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I haven't been here. I was out of Vrindavan, unfortunately for me, for some time. So what I wanted to focus on, what really stood out for me in this particular verse was about time. So what are the 5 subject matters that are spoken about in the Gita? One of them, of course, is time. Ishvara, the Jiva, Prakriti, and time and karma. And karma is not permanent. We can change our karma, but all the others is permanent. So the reason I wanted to speak about time, because when I was out of Vrindavan, all I could think about was how slow the time was going for me to come back to home, come back to Vrindavan, because I consider Vrindavan home. And previously, when I was coming to Vrindavan, it was a long time in between, like maybe 2 to 3 years before I could come back. But since I've been here since 2017, so when I had to go out to renew my visa, it just seemed like time was at a standstill. You know, what's that in, who said that? It felt like 12 years or more. I was just so disturbed about having to be away from Vrindavan and of course thinking about, okay, what is Krishna telling me in this time span? You know, what do I do with this time? Of course, I spent time with God family because I hadn't seen them in a while and they hadn't been to Vrindavan, but still I was in so much anxiety thinking, am I going to get back to Vrindavan? Am I going to get back to Vrindavan? Why is it taking so long? And I had applied for a visa twice, and they both got refused. So the third, you know, in America, we say the third time is a charm. So I said, I had decided, no matter how many times I have to do it, I'm going to keep doing it until I get a yes. So the third time, I finally got the visa. So I was really happy. But when I think about that time, I was totally a nervous wreck about the time that I had to spend in the U.S. instead of being here in Vrindavan. You know, plus there's so many things are happening in the U.S. and everybody is in anxiety. You know, it's talk, you know, like in our scriptures, it talks about when you have a leader, the type of leader you have, you know, they're supposed to be watching out for you. You know, they're supposed to be like a father to their praja, the people who are there taking care of, but that's not happening. So everybody's in so much anxiety. So many things are going on. You know, so I was just anxious to get back. Plus, the temple was like an hour away, and sometimes I couldn't get transportation. So I was in total anxiety. But now that I'm here, it just seemed like a short time. While I was there, it seemed like a long time. But now I'm here, I feel like, okay, you know, time. So talking about time, Krishna talks about time. He talks about time. One is in 10:30. He says he talks about time in terms of the jiva souls in a material body, and he talks about time in relationship to himself. So he says in chapter 10, verse 30, among subduers, I'm time. So in the purport, it says, Prabhupada says, there are so many subduing principles, but time wears down all things in the material universe and so represents Krishna. So we know that everything in this material world deteriorates. And we have this material body, and we know as we age, we start deteriorating. It's like a car. Once you drive the car off of the lot, what happens? Anybody know? You've had a car. It depreciates, right? The value becomes less and less the more you use it, you know. But at least as devotees, we're trying to use our body in the service of Krishna. But still, until we come to the realization that we're not the body, that we're eternal souls, but still the body, the material body itself disintegrates. Everything disintegrates around us. The longer we use it, the more it'll start deteriorating. So everything in the material world is deteriorating with time. And in terms of the word subduer means, I looked it up because Prabhupada, he's so expert in English and using the words that, will hit the meaning that he wants. He was amazing in every kind of way. So he's saying, subdue means, subduer is someone or something that overcomes or controls or conquers an opponent through power, force, or persuasion. And so this word relates to a victor, a master, or a suppressor. So Krishna, he's a victor and he's a master. So he's among subduers, he's time. And then this is the first time I'm using the computer in class, so excuse me for any delay in locating. Okay, so, and then in 1033, he says, I'm inexhaustible time. Inexhaustible. It means you can't wear it out. It's perpetual, it's eternal. Time is eternal. And in the purport, he says, among all kinds of killers, time is the ultimate because time kills everything. Time is the representative of Krishna because in due course of time, there will be a great fire and everything will be annihilated. And we know this one because we've heard it so many times that Prabhupada says, okay, where are you? Oh my God, Krishna, help. Okay, get back to my... In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.17, Prabhupada says, and we've heard this, anyone who's listened to Srila Prabhupada or read his books, he says, Krishna, okay, where are you? Here it is. He says, both by the rising and setting, the sun decreases the duration of life for everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. And also in Gita 6:17, Krishna says that a devotee does not want to waste a minute of time without being engaged in the service of the Lord. So when we think about our acharyas and how strict they were in utilizing their time, not only Srila Prabhupada, but Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur. If you look at Bhakti Vinod Thakur's schedule, you're like, how did he fit everything in? He had a family, he had 10 to 12, 13 children. How did he do that? So in this purport here, it says, to be free from material contamination, a pure devotee acts under the direction of the Lord or his representative as the spiritual master. And there's no time limitation. This is the sentence that I focused on because I was meditating on it. There's no time limitation for a pure devotee. So what do you think that indicates in terms of no time limitation for a pure devotee? Anyone want to help?
Pure devotee has no distraction.
Mm-hmm.
We have distraction. We cannot engage in cars as we should.
Yes.
Break.
Yes. Yes.
Pure devotee is not like that.
A pure devotee is not only that, but he's actually in Krishna's time. He's in Krishna's time. So he's in that eternal time. So when he leaves his body, he just goes straight back to his service in his spiritual body. So he's totally focused. I remember seeing a picture of Gopal Goswami. He was sleeping or he was unconscious, but he was doing arti. You saw that, right? I was like, wow. So that meant he was totally in the spiritual energy. That was his total focus. There was nothing else to interfere with his service to his spiritual master and his service to Krishna. And I found that so amazing to see that picture. I was like, wow, can I ever get there? And the thing is, I remember reading what Srila Prabhupada, one of his disciples, asked him about, what was it? Or maybe it was someone in the audience about his disciples. The question was about a pure devotee. I don't remember the exact question. And then Prabhupada said that all his disciples are pure devotees. So that was his vision of his disciples. And of course, we can see the ones we're meeting, it's true. They all were empowered by Srila Prabhupada. How could they do the things they did without being empowered by Srila Prabhupada, which meant they were all pure devotees? Prabhupada gave them the empowerment to build this temple. Who could just come to a place that's nothing but forest and build this kind of temple? Look at it. It's growing. So many people are coming. This is what Prabhupada wanted. So many. It's like when I first came, I started coming here maybe in 1998, 99, something like that. And it wasn't like this. This is now and I remember hearing a class where one devotee said that now that there are so many people coming, it is our responsibility to try to preach to them, to give them Krishna consciousness, because they're all coming, and they're coming here by the arrangement of Krishna. No one comes here without the arrangement of Srimati Radharani and Krishna. Nobody. It's not an accident. So it means we have an obligation, those of us who are here, to speak to them, to encourage them, to give them books, to direct them in the right, whatever book they're looking for, whatever they're looking for, because actually all of us are looking for Krishna. They're all looking for Krishna. Some of them just don't know it. So we have to help them. I'm going to go a little bit off the topic because this has also been on my mind. I listened to a class a couple of days ago. It was one of Srila Prabhupada's devotees, his disciples, and he asked the question in the audience, can you see Krishna? Or have you seen Krishna? And nobody raised their hand, none of the devotees. And after I heard the question, I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay. We see Krishna through the spiritual master. We see Krishna by hearing. Hearing means seeing. So if we're hearing all the time, then we're seeing. If we're listening to classes, if we're listening to the pure devotees, if we're listening to our spiritual master, even if you're associating with the devotee, you're seeing Krishna. And we have to see Krishna in all the devotees, because they're all Krishna's parts and parcels. And there's no separation between us at all, because we're all parts and parcels of the Lord. So we're all seeing Krishna, but we are seeing it by hearing. We're not seeing it visually, but we're hearing his description. I was just listening to a class before I came in by Amarendra, and he was talking so sweetly about Krishna. Actually, it was something, the title was Beautiful Krishna, or something like that. And he was describing Krishna. And even describing the spiritual world. When we hear about the spiritual world, we should desire to go to that place, to make our lives perfect, the perfection of renunciation, to make our lives perfect, to go back home, back to Godhead, and not to stay in, Prabhupada used to call the material world a nasty place. But sometimes we don't think it's a nasty place as long as we're comfortable. And the span of the happiness is the stress. The happiness we get is the amount of time between difficulties. And when the difficulties, we're a little bit happy, and then there's always going to be problems and difficulties. So the little bit of happiness we get is in between that little space of time that we get satisfaction or happiness or whatever we are looking for in terms of being peaceful. My Guru Maharaj used to say, don't look for peace in the material world, even when you're trying to, be Krishna conscious. One Mataji, her name is Lakshmi Moni. She's a disciple. And years ago, I went to the Bhakti Sastra course. I took it from her. And whatever I took away, the one thing I remember is she would say, Krishna consciousness is a choice every minute. You can decide to do, like, okay, you want to get up in the morning to go to Manga Arti, but something tells you, oh, I'm tired, or I'm sick, or I don't feel well, or I didn't sleep well last night, or I ate late, blah, blah, blah. There's always something to prevent you from being focused and taking that direction. So we have to be aware of the choices we're making. Even on the phone, I find for me that the phone can be a distraction. When I'm chanting, I like to turn it down because you hear that notification, it makes a noise and it distracts you. You're like, oh, there's like it's calling you. Stop chanting. Pick me up. See what's on the phone. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a distraction. And actually, it's a struggle because what's happening, whatever we're looking at, we're giving our time and helping those content creators make money. When we're looking at it, we're just helping them. We're not helping ourselves. What we want to do is try to go to the classes or the lectures, but it's like going through a landmine. Like a landmine is like in a country. Okay, let's say Vietnam, because I was around when there was the Vietnam War. So after the army leaves, they leave mines. These are explosives in the ground and you can't see it. So somebody, you've heard of children losing their legs because they walked through a field that had mines in it and they didn't know. So that's what happens when we do the phone. You walk into a mine and you're stepping on something, you're like, oh my God. Because so many things come up on the phone and it gets so many people distracted. Even myself, and that's time lost. You can spend 1-2 hours on the phone and you're like, where did the time go? So for myself, I try to check myself. I'm become conscious of the fact that I'm getting ready to pick up the phone. So be conscious of what are you going to do on the phone? Have you finished chanting? I just talk to myself because my Guru Maharaj always said we have to be self-reflective. If we want to grow in Krishna consciousness, if we want to be serious, if we want to be one-pointed about the goal, then, we should be aware of how we're utilizing everything. So there's good things in the phone, but we just have to be conscious when we pick it up. What are we picking it up for? What are we going to pick it up for? And even, if we, because the pure devotees, all they know is Krishna. That's all they talk about. That's their only thing. They talk about Krishna. That's their total focus. And here it says that they are protected because they have that focus. And we see in the scriptures, like Prahlad Maharaj, he was always protected because he never forgot Krishna at any minute, not even a second. His whole attention was on Krishna, even in those circumstances, which is beyond me to understand. It's beyond me because I think I'm the body. If someone wants to throw me in a pit of snakes, I'm going to faint. But his whole consciousness was on Krishna only, on the Supreme Person of Godhead. And also in terms of the activities, we know Priyavrata. He didn't want to get married. That's in Canto 5, first chapter, I think is the first chapter. He didn't want to get married. And he was saying, I don't want to get married. I want to just stay renounced. But they needed him to propagate. So when I think it was Narada who was trying to ask him to get married. So he was saying, no, I don't want to get married. So then Lord Brahma came, because Lord Brahma is the creator. And he asked him to please take up this service. So even though he became involved in household life, at the end of that, because he had two wives, the first one was Bahasmati, and I forget the second one, and he had 10 sons. But he came to a stage where he wanted to, he had done his duty, and he wanted to renounce, but he was protected the whole time. You know, they told him, you'll be protected, don't worry about it. And I think there was another personality, I can't think of the personality's name, about being protected even though you may be doing material activities. And your activities, even if you have a material job or to do, your activities should be, your material activities should be secondary to your spiritual activities. Make it a priority. And it means sacrifice. If you have a job, it means you have to get up early and chant your rounds so that you can be able to move forward in your day if you have material things to do. And then you become protected because you're trying to do the spiritual first before the material. And even for me, like, I used to go shopping for the deities, and sometimes I needed to go for myself, but the priority first was always take care of the deity things first, then do your thing, but do the deity thing first. And also about time. I remember, I don't know if it's anybody else's experience, but for me, being on the altar means you're in Krishna's time. Like, I was living in Gita for about 15 years, and sometimes because it was a farm community, you didn't have a lot of help. Or if it was snowing or the roads were bad or icy and devotees couldn't come to do their service, and you'd have to do it. And it meant dressing all the deities. It was like Radha Damodar, the Gopis, Chota, Radha Krishna, Jagannath, and Gauranitai. And sometimes you'd have to do them all yourself within the limited time because it was a limited time. And then you began to understand that when you totally focus, Krishna is the controller of time. He can expand time and he can contract time. And you become, you have that realization particularly when you're in that kind of a situation, that you just depend on Krishna. Okay, Krishna, I have to dress all these deities. So you just focus on your service, and Krishna takes care of everything else. He'll take care of everything else because you're making the effort and you surrender to that particular service. You know, so Krishna expands time and contracts it. So him being in charge of time, you know, you can get the realization. So as we said, there's no time limitation for the pure devotee, no time limitation at all, because he's already in Krishna's energy. So he's in eternal time already. And if you've ever had to serve your spiritual master, you cannot keep up with them. It's just hard to really keep up walking or even in seva because they're in emergency consciousness. Their total focus is to save as many souls as possible. So they're in emergency consciousness. And even if there's one soul that goes out of the way to save, it's very, very important to him. But even Krishna, there's several times when I've been out preaching, when I went to Nepal. And when I got to the airport, the taxi driver didn't know where this guest house was that I was supposed to go. And so he had to take me to one that he knew of, and the hotel was called the Karma Hotel. So So I was like a little bit disturbed. I'm like, why am I at this place? Because the guest house had been recommended by the Nepal temple. They said that it was a nice place and devotees go there because there was no room in the temple itself. So I was like distressed about having to be there, and I was complaining about the room, and you could smell smoke, and I was like, why am I here? What am I here for? I need to go to this place. So the young man who took me to my room, he came back to check on me, and of course I was complaining. I was like, this is this, and I smell smoke and this and that. Can you do something about this? And then because I had on tilak, he asked me, what's your religion? What are you doing? So I had the opportunity to preach to him, and then I remembered that I had brought a Nepalese Bhagavad Gita with me. And so then I remembered it, and I gave it to him, and he was really happy to get it. And then I thought, Krishna put me there to give it to this one person. It was only one person, but one soul is important to Krishna, just like it's important to the spiritual master. And you just have to surrender to being the instrument, So I didn't understand it until it all had happened. And I was like, okay, Krishna, you brought me all the way here just to give this young man, he was young, maybe 21, 22, to give this young man a Gita. And he was really happy to get it. And so I've had so many of those type of situations where this one person, Krishna will speak to you. You just have to hear him, when I was going to the Indian embassy. It was like such a trip. I had to keep going back and forth. But at the end, the last time I went, I had a Bhagavad Gita with me. And I was going to leave it at home wherever I was staying, because it was heavy. And I wanted to get some boga. So I said, well, I can't take the book and get the boga. It's going to be too heavy for me. But then I said, okay, let me take the Gita, because I'll read it while I'm waiting, because in the Indian embassy, you just wait. As you're waiting, just wait until they get to you, right? So then at the end of when they finally got to me and I paid for the visa, this was the one that went through. One young girl in an Indian body. I had the book in my backpack, and I took it out and I said, do you want a Gita? You want the Bhagavad Gita? She was so happy. Oh my God. She was like very enthused to get the Bhagavad Gita. Very enthused. And then when I was leaving, still she came over and hugged me and said, thank you so much for giving me the Gita. So I was thinking, Krishna's just trying to encourage me to do more distribution of books, because that's what we should do. Why are we, holding it ourselves? We have to give it out. We can't hold it. The knowledge that you hold on to, you lose it. So we have to share what we have. And just like in the scriptures, Dhruva, he wanted his mother to come. He was like, where's my mother? He wanted to bring her because she's the one that told him to go pray to the Lord. Also, even in Pradap Maharaj, he was preaching to his demon classmates, sharing, So we're here to share. We're here to share everything, And in terms of, back again to the subject of time, so everybody in the material world, all they're doing is thinking about the span of time between their life and death, because they don't know anything beyond death. They think death is the end. So they're planning their life in that way. They're like, okay, what do I want to do? I have to plan my life. I want a career, or I want to be an actor. I want to do this. The span of time I have to get this done. Because that's their goal. They think that's the only goal, is to live a nice life, to be happy, to be comfortable. Whatever their plan is, it's only between those span of time, life and death, but we know better. that we have an afterlife with spirit souls, and we have an afterlife. And this is what we're planning for. This is why we're doing what we're doing, why we're doing our sadhana, why we're trying to stay in the company of devotees, why we're taking prasadam, and why we're reading and hearing. And hearing is the most important. That's the first one, hearing. That's the most important to hear. So it said he's always 24 hours a day, 100% engaged in activities under the direction of the Supreme Lord. And to a devotee who is thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind. The Lord is so kind. He's very kind. Even if I'm in distress, I can only say that the Lord is very, very kind. Even in the middle of distressing situations, the Lord is very kind to his devotees. And he's saying here, in spite of all difficulties, whatever difficulties we have, we will eventually be placed in the transcendental abode, Krishna Loka. It's guaranteed. Krishna doesn't tell stories. Although he told Arjuna, sometimes persons don't believe me, so I'm letting you say, letting you speak. But still, he said he's guaranteed entrance there. There's no doubt about it. So if we have any doubts, whatever doubts we have, we should bring it to our spiritual master, so he can help us get through whatever doubts, because doubts come up. Even throughout this Gita, even though Arjuna had surrendered in chapter 2, I think it's 7, verse 7, where he surrendered finally to the Lord as his spiritual master, but still throughout the war, he had difficulties, So Krishna would have to re-encourage him and remind him, what he needed to do. And he would do things like when his son Abhimanyu got killed by those warriors, he swore to get Jayadratha. He said, I'm going to kill him, and if I don't kill him, I'm going to kill myself. And then Krishna was like, why did you say that? So Krishna was obligated to help his devotee, because he said that. And even with Prahlad Maharaj, when Prahlad Maharaj said, when his father said, where is he? Is he in that pillar? And Prahlad said, yes, he's in that pillar. So Krishna made that pronunciation come true. He came out of the pillar to kill Hiranyakasipu. So we don't have to doubt the Lord at all, but whatever doubts we have, we just go to the spiritual master. That's why we have a spiritual master, or go to a senior person who can help you, with your doubts. And that's why we're in association, to help one another progress in this movement, the path back to Godhead, back to Krishna Loka. And it said in that supreme abode, there's no change. Everything is eternal. So everything here changes. Even our mind changes. We have the three difficulties. Like it's the mind, and then it's the devas, and then it's other living entities. So we are always going to have difficulties being here in the material world, because Prabhupada said, this is no place for a gentleman or a gentlewoman. This is no place for us to be. We have to go back home. So in that supreme abode, there's no change. Everything is eternal, imperishable, and full of knowledge. So on that note, I can end and open it up for questions, comments, corrections, as you like, discussion, feedback, reciprocation. Yes?
So, like you said, devotional Krishna consciousness means sharing. Sometimes I don't want to share because I feel inferior to everybody. It's like every class is now very good. I feel like self-conscious when I'm in the justice center. I'm a robot disciple. I'm afraid to go into the justice center because people going to know like I'm a fool.
You know what? I'll tell you. Before I give a class, I am a nervous wreck. I'm a wreck because I'm basically an introvert. So being extroverted is very difficult for me. But what I think about is this is not about me. It's not, how I feel, nor am I the center of anything. I have to allow Krishna to speak through me. So, and also the devotees are very kind, and no one's judging what you say or how you say it, or every devotee is different, and every devotee has a different delivery. And when you speak about Krishna, when you speak about devotional service, you're perfect. It's perfect. So there's no need to you don't have to feel that way. You just deliver it as Krishna enters your heart, and know that the devotees are kind and have accepted what you have to offer. Especially if you're a Prabhupada disciple, for sure. But just in general, the devotees, because everybody has a different way of delivery. And if you notice the individuality of every single devotee when they deliver class, it's different. Everybody's different. But they're just sharing their realizations, and they're sharing what they're reading. So just share yourself. Even with all our insecurities or idiosyncrasies or whatever, it's okay. Because we're all trying to get there. And we're all works in progress. I remember and we're not perfect, because the 4 defects. And I remember when I used to dress the deities, I always wanted everything to be perfect. I was such but then I realized that only Krishna is perfect. Because after I dressed and I looked and I was like, oh, why didn't I do this? Or this looks a little crooked, or this. And then I relaxed after some time, because I said, you'll never get it right. You're just trying, and Krishna's accepting your service because he's kind. But it won't ever be perfect, because if it was perfect, you would be in the spiritual world. I wouldn't be in the material world if I was perfect. So to get rid of that thought of, perfection or making it perfect, it'll never happen. The only perfection is being in devotional service and trying. That's the perfection of all the devotees. We're all trying. Is that okay?
Yes.
Mataji, with my limited knowledge, but I have read the scriptures of Prabhupada books. Prabhupada in his books have never rather encouraged, rather he has not discouraged, but he has not encouraged people or the devotees coming to Vrindavan reside here. Rather, Prabhupada has encouraged devotees to do devotional services. Mataji, one more thing, there is a physical Vrindavan place where we are here. But in purpose, I have read that Vrindavan is a place where devotees, they come together, they chant at 24/7, 24/7, they engage in the service of Lord. So Mataji, how to see all that in consolation with all that? How to see all that? A Vrindavan is a place, or a Vrindavan is a state of mind where everyone, if we reside in some other place and 24/7 we engage in the service of Lord under the guidance of spiritual master, then that is Vrindavan, or this physical place is Vrindavan?
They're both a Vrindavan, but sometimes you can be in Vrindavan and not be in Vrindavan consciousness, and that happens as well. So you have to be conscious of Vrindavan itself, the supreme abode, because just being Vrindavan doesn't mean you're in Vrindavan consciousness. but it's the thinking of Vrindavan and the Vidavasis and the Gopis and Krishna and their activities will put you in Vrindavan consciousness. But it doesn't mean necessarily that because you're here in this location, which is Bhumi Vrindavan, it doesn't mean that everyone who's in Vrindavan is in Vrindavan consciousness. But still they're here, and you can't come here unless Radharani wants you to come here. She's there on the altar. You know? So even if you go out or you go to your hometown, you can take Vrindavan in your heart with you. Because my Guru Maharaj, he didn't come to Vrindavan to leave his body. He left his body in Gita Nagari. And that was an example for us to know that it's not necessary that you leave your body in Vrindavan, because of course he was in Vrindavan consciousness wherever he was. Does that help?
Can you please elaborate a bit?
Elaborate, like, can you be more specific? Like,
it's fine.
Prabhupada wanted us to come to Vrindavan.
he did.
Recharge spiritually.
So you come to Vrindavan, right? Thank you. You come to Vrindavan to rejuvenate,
Yes.
and then you go and preach. Wherever you're from, you can go preach. I go out of Vrindavan to preach. Prabhupada went out of Vrindavan to preach. But still, he encouraged us to come here. Because when you reach a certain age, coming to Vrindavan is okay, although it's no longer a forest. But coming to retirement, not retired from devotional life, but from the material world. For me, being here means I'm constantly seeing Krishna. I'm constantly seeing devotees. I'm constantly being reminded of Krishna and his pastimes, being here. It depends on where is your consciousness. Because for me, I just want to be 24/7 in devotional service in Krishna's abode right here in Vrindavan. That's why I wanted to come back. I don't think that answered your question.
Mataji.
No.
No, Mataji, it's fine.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, all of the devotees, for being here in the Gita class. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna Krishna